If you've ever experienced that kind of terror and feeling of an attack when you were trying to communicate with somebody, you've probably experienced communication apprehension. Communication apprehension is the fear of communicating in a situation that you perceive to be uncomfortable. We have all experienced this at one time or another, even I have, and particularly if you've ever felt fear with public speaking, you've experienced communication apprehension. But it can also happen in interpersonal relationships. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to explain some of the common characteristics of communication apprehension, and then I'll tell you a very personal story of how my husband and I overcame problems with communication apprehension. For anyone experiencing communication apprehension, there seem to be three characteristics that come about. The first of these is something called lack of conversational sensitivity. It does not mean you're an insensitive person. What it does mean is that you have an inability to interpret and remember conversation or dialogue. Because of your fear, you are unable to remember, much the same way a person who perhaps was in a car accident could be talking but not ever really remember what's going on after the event was done. So it can be a real problem, because if two people are talking and one person is upset and they are kind of not interpreting the other person correctly, or even forgetting something they said, the first person is very likely to be extremely frustrated and think the other person isn't even paying attention or doesn't care. That might not be the case. Let me give you an example of this. A guy and a girl started to date. One day, the ex-girlfriend calls the guy up and says, "Look, I know you're with somebody else now, but I want to get together because we had kind of a bad breakup, and if I just feel like if we could just talk about it, then I would be able to move on with my life." He agrees to go see her. He tells his new girlfriend, "Yes, I'm going to go see her." So when he gets back, she says, what do you think she says? Yeah, you're right. She goes, "What happened?" And he goes, "Well, I don't know. She was upset about some of the stuff from when we were dating, but everything's okay now." He thinks that's the end of it, but it's not. What does the new girlfriend say? What did she say? Well, he says something like, "I don't know, she was talking about some stuff that happened from when we were dating. Everything's okay. I wouldn't worry about it." Well, immediately the new girlfriend is now angry, and she thinks that he's hiding something. He's not. The situation was just so uncomfortable for him that he really didn't get a lot of detail, and truly, honestly, can't remember what the ex-girlfriend even said. He's likely to enter into just as uncomfortable of a situation now, because now the new girlfriend is really angry, and she's likely to bully him for more information. The second characteristic that people with communication apprehension experience is actually communication avoidance. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what this is. If you perceive that a person or a topic is going to be uncomfortable for you to talk about, you avoid it. And I had an experience with this many years ago. I dated a guy who was a high-ranking officer at Penn State. He had a doctorate in communication. He had been in the Marines. He had been an assistant to one of the Apollo 11 astronauts at one point in his life, so he was a very high-end individual. Well, after a number of months of dating, I wanted to know where the relationship was going, and he would say, "Oh, I'm really tired. Let's talk about it tomorrow." Tomorrow would come. He would avoid it again. It was a long-distance relationship, so we only saw each other every couple of weeks, and he successfully avoided it for many months. Let me give you a little pointer right now. If you are trying to get somebody to commit to a relationship, you should probably run in the opposite direction if they don't really act like they're interested. That's what I should have done, but c'est la vie. The third characteristic of communication apprehension is something called communication withdrawal. Withdraw looks like extreme fear. If we were in the classroom right now, I would demonstrate this for you, but I really can't do it effectively. But it really looks like the person has completely shut down. You'll see his or her expression will disappear. They might get a very closed posture like this. They might look away from you. And there will be very long periods of silence in which the person will not respond to what you're saying. So it'll be like this. Even that was uncomfortably long for most of you, but it could be even longer than that. Chances are, if you're talking to somebody who is experiencing communication withdrawal, you're not going to know how to interpret it. You will think it means disinterest, or that the person doesn't care about you or love you or respect you or something like that. It might not mean that at all. It just means that they're so overwhelmed they really cannot communicate. Some people have this to a greater degree than other people do. In the next video, I'm going to tell you about the beginning of my relationship with my husband and how we experienced this very thing.